Well, today should be an exciting day. We're going to get the 84, Project 84 off the lift. I have my niece coming over. I have to fix her car, and then we're going to work on Peg. You haven't seen Peg yet. Peg is a 2014 Ford Fiesta ST that belongs to my daughter, and we're going to do a whole brake job on that. So I've got a set of brake pads and rotors and all that stuff in that box there. So we're gonna go ahead and put that on. She's needed brakes for a while. They're starting to really get bad, and so we're gonna throw Peg up on the lift and get that done today. This is my Project 84 Firebird. I'm moving it out of the way and getting it off the lift so that we can get my niece's car in here. She has a 2009 Malibu, and the front valance is kind of falling off the bumper. So we're going to go ahead and get that fixed up for her. Alright, so I just finished up my niece's car. Showed you in the time lapse. It's just the front air dam had gotten ripped off. No idea how that happened. Next up is going to be Peg. We're going to go ahead and do a brake job on that. All four wheels need to be replaced at all four corners, not all four wheels. And then we may even swap over to the snow tires. Although it is 60 degrees here in Kentucky the day after Christmas, so she probably doesn't need her snow tires on yet, so we'll figure that one out when it happens. In this clip, Bree's breaking loose all the lugs before we lift the car off the ground. It just makes it much easier to get all the wheels and tires off the car.
You get it,
We can set it down. Here's a quick time lapse of me doing one of the front brakes. Essentially, there's a couple bolts that hold the caliper on. There's 2 more bolts that hold the bracket on, and then you can remove the rotor, put the new rotor on, reassemble the caliper bracket, and then put the new pads in. You can see I was just using a tool to push the piston back into the caliper. Pads go on, caliper goes back on. Make sure you secure it with the 2 bolts that hold it on, and that's pretty much it. It's not really too complicated, especially on a little Fiesta. Here's another time lapse from a little bit different angle. You can see exactly what I'm doing when I'm not standing in the way. Now we're moving on to the rear brakes. These are essentially the same as the fronts, only smaller, with one caveat. You're going to remove the 2 bolts that hold the caliper to the bracket. You can see I'm using an adjustable to hold the slide pin. I think those are 13, maybe. Then we'll be moving on to the bracket. The bracket is a little bit larger bolts. I think they're 15s. The difficulty in the rears is you need a special tool to turn the piston and the caliper back in. You can't just use a C-clamp and push it back in. You'll damage the piece. So you need a special tool. You can actually rent that from O'Reilly or AutoZone or whatever if you need to. So here's a better angle. I am removing one small 8mm bolt that holds the emergency brake cable to the axle, and then from there I can kind of force the caliper to come off. It's on there pretty good because her brakes are really worn, so the piston's way out. If you just work it back and forth, you won't have any trouble. Now I'm just removing the brackets bolts so that I can get that off. That holds the rotor. If you're not replacing the rotor, then you don't need to do this step. Now moving on to that part that I told you was kind of hard. It's not really hard, it's just kind of tedious. You can see that I'm turning the piston back into the caliper. That'll reset the pads so that for the new pads, because the new brake pads will be much thicker than the old ones. So if you don't do this, then you're not able to put the pads in. So make sure you get that special tool. If you don't have it, it's a major pain to do. It's not complicated. Once you have it, you can get it on. I can link the tools in Amazon. That's pretty much it for the rear. Just do that, set the pads back in place once you have the bracket in place, and then you'll be good to go. Here's a quick tip. If you are struggling to get the rotor off like I am here, sometimes there's some corrosion on the hub. You can take a small hammer. You can use a dead blow. In this case, we're replacing the rotors, so I don't care if I damage them. Do not do this with a hammer. if you are going to reuse your rotors or get them turned, use a dead blow hammer or something similar, but just turn it and tap it, it'll come right off. I like to use a little copper anti-seize on the hub. That'll keep it from corroding, and you'll be able to get the rotor off much easier next time. Just make sure you don't get it on any of the pad surfaces.